And without further ado, very, very jazzed to be able to introduce to you our speaker, a feminist and also an embroidery guru who is a fiber artist who brings a lot of his work, which is about subtle propaganda and cartoons. It is an intellectual quest of understanding even the dark side of what's happening in current events. And we're really excited to bring him to the stage, who is a very celebrated artist here in the city of Chicago. Can we all give a very, very warm welcome to Peter Frederiksen.
Hi.
Hi.
Very cool to be here. I made this presentation, FYI. I have a little bit of experience with building PowerPoints. I do it as part of my job, but also back in lockdown, some friends and I would host Zoom parties, and we would do presentation Zoom parties. So 5-minute pitch. You give a presentation about anything. The idea was that they'd be about kind of whatever it is that you want to be talking about. But it should also kind of be fun. So I made one about tangents once, and I just followed a stream of consciousness for 5 minutes. I tried really hard not to do that here, but stick with me if I wander just a bit. So, did you know that touch is the first sense? There we go. Touch is the first sense to develop. It really makes sense that when we see something beautiful, one of our instincts is to touch it. Right? Yeah. Okay. First, a little tangent so that I can introduce myself. Who is he? I am Peter Frederiksen. I'm your presenter today. I'm a Chicago-based embroidery and textile artist. Do not be confused. I also have a real job. I used to be a producer in ad agencies. Now I'm a producer and artist rep for a company that I own called Rad Represents. I work with a group of photographers, directors, illustrators, CGI artists, fabricators. We just get hired to make art and objects for advertising and marketing. Before all of this, I attended the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. For a couple of years, I did drop out. And I spent about a decade working on art during nights and weekends. I used to paint, and I'd probably still be painting if I didn't find my heart in embroidery. So, the question I get asked most frequently about my art is, why embroidery? I think this is an interesting question, because I can promise you, painters don't really get asked why painting. I know, because I used to paint, and nobody ever asked me, why painting? Mostly, though, the reason why embroidery is that I love it. I love the patience that it takes. I love the solitude. Oh, did we lose me? Oh, there we go. Okay, I love the solitude. I love concentrating when it's important and kind of being able to zone out when it's possible. I do especially love the feel of embroidery. I love the way that the lines and the stitches follow when your fingers can track them, almost like Braille or something like that. There's a thing in textiles, this is all textiles, especially clothing, but all textiles, called hand feel. It refers to the way that fabrics feel against the scanner in the hand. That's pretty good, right? So, I knew I'd get this back to touch somehow. This is going great. My medium is embroidery, but the method is called free motion or freehand machine embroidery. By altering a standard sewing machine just a bit, it can be used to essentially paint with thread. Moving a hoop under the needle, careful to avoid your fingers, please. You are essentially drawing or painting with a needle. And with enough time and practice, you can get something like this, or whatever it is that you want to make. This piece that I'm showing here is called No, 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 No. Guess why? It's from a solo show that I had last year in New York at a gallery called Massey Klein. The show was called No, 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 No. I've been pretty fortunate in that I've found some success with my art. Take this, of course, with a grain of salt. As you know, as I mentioned, I do still have a job. But at this point, I've got about 2 to 3 solo shows a year, which is a marked rise from none. It's mostly, I think it's just incredibly cool that people are responding to what I'm putting out there. It's something that I don't want to let go of yet. I'm willing to do just about anything to not fuck it up. So this show dealt with a lot of what I like to focus on in my work, namely panic, regret, denial, maybe a little protest. In spite of the succinct nature of the word no, it can carry kind of a lot of meanings. It's, say a quiet mantra uttered under your breath as you wander through a dark house, investigating a noise, no. Hurried exclamations, bracing yourself against would-be intruders, or maybe it's just a sign nailed to a tree meant to warn or to frighten or just say no because sometimes saying no feels right. Speaking no to the universe or whomever may be listening. There were 5 no pieces mixed throughout the show, each progressively ascending. So no, 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 no. You get the point. All right. This is one of those tangents I was warning you about. There's no way that I could fill 25 minutes just talking about my art. Not that you'd even want that. So, to use the parlance of the month, we're going to touch on some of my work and process in between actual touching of other works. I'm calling this presentation, Don't Touch the Art. Okay, so let's talk about a brief, abridged, and wholly uneducated history of touched art. You can't really see it. You'll get the jokes later. All right, a little bit of history. Vandalism. The term vandalisme was coined in 1794 by Henri Gregoire. I'm trying here. to describe the destruction of artwork following the French Revolution. The term originated from the invasion of Rome in 455 by the East Germanic tribe of Vandals, we've all heard of them, which resulted in destruction of numerous artworks and was quickly adopted across Europe. Let's see. It's thinking about it. Oh, there we go. The Vandals were probably not any more destructive than invaders of ancient times, but writers who idealized Rome, and we all know who those are, blamed them for its destruction. That's a little touch right there. Oh, and some vandalism here. So, you may have noticed I used some Looney Tunes iconography in my work. You may not have noticed that also because I'm just now getting into it. So, like so many, I grew up with Looney Tunes as a Saturday morning staple. My father, my brother, and I would watch. My father in his tattered robe and with his coffee. My brother and I with our cereals. And I've got to be honest, my memories of cartoons at this age are more of the act of watching than of the actual cartoons. The ways in which I've been inspired by these Saturday morning cartoons are so deeply rooted at this point that I'm positive that it's no longer influence but foundational. It is more than that though. These are characters and episodes and moments that due to their prominence have permeated into our culture. And their culture is a complicated one. I rarely show faces of these characters because I don't need to. You know what they look like. These are characters that everyone knows because they're on the sides of Coca-Cola cans. They have theme parks. They're on our federal postage. They're also characters that were created and popularized during wartime, a time of jingoism and all of the racism and violence that accompanies these things. These characters solve their problems with guns and bombs and knives and traps, and as kids, we're told that these things are funny. They are. They're very funny. But also, looking closer, you can start to question the worth of these things. You can start to see the toxicity of violence as an answer. Thinking back to those Saturday mornings, you still smile. Of course, viewed under a microscope, you'll see the seams on anything. I just like seeing those seams and considering what they mean to me. I'll take these themes and put my own themes on top and manipulate viewers to feel the same things. And it's easy, because we have this shared visual language. All right, nerds. Got some more history for you. I'm calling this section Black and White and Red All Over, because it deals with newsworthy instances of black and white artworks having a little red added to them. All right, we all know Pablo Picasso's Guernica. It's one of the most famous anti-war works of art. It became the site of an anti-war protest during the Vietnam War. In 1974, a year after Picasso's death, Iranian artist and future gallerist Tony Shafrazi spray-painted "Kill Lies All" in massive red letters across the black and white painting as it hung in New York's Museum of Modern Art. Shafrazi was reacting to President Richard Nixon's pardoning of William Calley, who was the only U.S. Army officer to go on trial for the My Lai massacre of 1968. He also said he was trying to reactivate Guernica as a cry of protest against war and civilian deaths. Shafrazi was led away from the scene and charged with criminal mischief. When asked by police why he did it, he said, "I'm an artist, and I wanted to tell the truth." The paint was removed with relative ease. Shafrazi is now known best as the early dealer of works by Keith Haring and Jean-Michel Basquiat. That's a little touch right there. All right, a lesser known work, but Cy Twombly, everybody's favorite Cy. In 2007, police arrested artist Rindy Sam after she kissed the all-white canvas of Phaedrus by Cy Twombly. That's the one in the middle there. The artwork, which was worth an estimated $2.8 million, was on display in France at the time. Sam was tried in court for voluntary degradation of a work of art. She defended herself by saying, "It was just a kiss. A loving gesture. I kissed it without thinking. I thought the artist would understand. It was an artistic act provoked by the power of art." Okay, quick aside, I did look really hard. I tried to see if Cy Twombly ever spoke about this. It was close to his death. I don't think he did, but I think probably also he would have enjoyed it. I just get the guy. I get him. Sam was convicted and ordered to pay 1,000 euros to the painting's owner, 500 euros to the French gallery that showed it, and €1 to Cy Twombly. Kiss. That's a kiss. All right. This is a bathtub by Andy Warhol. It's one of the few paintings that he actually painted. It's not a screen print. In 1998, the painting Bathtub was estimated to be worth, at the time, several $100,000. It was kissed by a vandal during a party at the museum it was being shown in. Because Warhol had not varnished the painting, conservators at the Carnegie Museum of Art were concerned that traditional solvents would cause the lipstick to soak into the painting and make things worse. So they reached out to NASA and using something called atomic oxygen, Google tells me that NASA uses it to clean tiles on satellites. It took 8 hours to clean the kiss off, going fiber by fiber. It worked a little too well. The treatment also removed all of the airborne pollutants that had darkened the canvas over the year, leaving a little clean spot where the kiss had been. Cute. All right, back to some of my shit. What's the big deal? Okay. You can kind of see the scale I'm working in here, which in the art world is called small. This is part practical, part preference, and part preference as practical. So, here's another quick tangent real quick. We're going to learn a little about sewing machine anatomy. The physical space that you can fit the fabric through a sewing machine is called the throat. That's the throat there. And most machine throats are about 5 inches across. That's right there. Meaning that I cannot use an embroidery hoop larger than 10 inches if I want to cover every part of the fabric. All right, so while I've worked on bigger pieces, it's harder to guarantee fidelity on final work when moving the hoop around. There are ripples. You're going to see changes in texture. Worst of all, it really does up the chances of tearing, which has absolutely happened more than a few times, way closer to being done with a piece than you might think. It hurts every time. All of that said, I also just like small work. I love that it forces a viewer to get up close and personal with a piece. There are a lot of small details in these pieces that truly only make themselves known when you're hovering close to it. This kind of interaction with art is something that I love seeing. All right, a little bit more history. I call this section Bad Touch, or stop, hammer time. Because you guessed it, these works were touched with hammers. We know this guy. In 1991, artist Piero Cannata attacked the statue David by Michelangelo with a hammer that he had concealed under his jacket, damaging the toes of the left foot before being restrained. He later said that a 16th century Venetian painter's model's spirit ordered him to do it. As one does. There's some toes. 3 foot freaks. All right, Duchamp's fountain, famous ready-made work, urinal that he turned on its side, has been the subject of 2 attacks. In 1993, performance artist Pierre Pinicelli took the sculpture a little too literally and urinated it when it was on display in a gallery in France, afterwards striking it with a hammer. That's right, absolutely. Though he was given a hefty fine, he decided to do it again in 2006 while it was being exhibited in Paris, this time chipping it. He said that he argued that he didn't attack the fountain. He didn't want to damage it. He wanted to liberate it from the commercial art world and restore it back to Duchamp's original vision. Also, Brian Eno peed in it. That's an Eno. Okay. Oh, all right. Yeah. Oh, I know. We know this one. This is the Pieta by Michelangelo. In 1972, Laszlo Toth, an unemployed geologist, dealt a dozen blows to Michelangelo's Pieta, knocking off Mary's nose, leaving her head covered with a bunch of chips and indents. The Vatican Museum undertook a painstaking 10-month restoration process in which conservators assembled the 3 fragments of her nose and the 100 shards that flew off during the hammering. That's a pic. As it was happening, there was a tourist there that managed to capture it. In some ways, the conservators were pretty lucky. Experts say that if he had hit it at a slightly different angle, the head would have come clean off. Ultimately, the piece was made good as new and debuted behind bulletproof glass, just in case. Just in case. I actually wrote pause for laughter in my script. All right. Okay. We're doing great. We're doing really good. Conservator touch. Okay. This is the home stretch. I'm gonna share just a little bit about myself again. I know, super conceited. I'm sorry. This is touching on my 2-second animations though, so it's guaranteed to be quick. Mostly, I just want to show these off. I think they're neat. These embroidered animations started almost as a challenge. I wanted to see if I could take these animations that I was referencing and break them down to their frames, which I am already doing, I guess. And I wanted to edit them, change them to fit my wishes, and then return them to original form. This piece is called Giving Up, and is my longest animation to date at 10 frames. Each of these is 4 by 6 inches. Sorry, should I use the handle?
Yeah, why don't you switch that?
Yep, I'm on it.
Thanks, Peter.
You betcha. Do we have me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, there we go. This is, each one is 4 by 6 inches, so they're kind of tiny. When I first started making these animations, I was putting all these frames on a single piece of fabric. Not dissimilar to an animation sheet or something along those lines. This is another practical thing. When you have something like 10 frames or 8 or 3, the smartest thing I have found is to keep them separate. When you're working on multiples, part of the goal is uniformity. You want to avoid pulling the fabric or stretching or rippling, so you keep them as single works, and that means that you, if God forbid you fuck one up, you haven't ruined the whole thing. This piece is titled "Somebody's Calling But I Ain't Answering," and it feels particularly primed for animation. Taken by themselves, any one or any one of the 3 are fine. Even together they're cool. They're stylized, they're bright. But when you animate the frames and loop them for forever, the whole piece becomes menacing and urgent. The door threatens to come off of the hinges. Unknown forces hammering from the other side. The animated frames give the cartoon imagery more realism. Seeing the door bend makes you think that it could also break. What were small changes in the individual frames feels monumental in a 2-second GIF. All right, that's a little bit about me. I hope that you learned a little bit about touching. I hope you were touched. I hope that this was a little fun and a little educational, maybe even a little silly. I'm your little guest speaker, Peter. You've been great.